If you are over 60 and your feet feel cold even in warm weather, or you wake up with leg numbness that takes minutes to fade, this is not just getting older like everyone says. It is often the first warning of poor circulation after 60, when blood flow to the lower body quietly starts to weaken, causing tingling feet and strange burning sensations at night, and most seniors never connect these signs until it gets worse. Maybe you notice your socks feel damp and icy, or your calves throb when you walk only a short distance. These are classic signs of blocked arteries in the legs, and they usually appear together with cold feet in the elderly. The people blame shoes, posture, or even their mattress, never realizing that a hidden vitamin deficiency in blood flow may be slowly starving the nerves in your legs. What makes this so dangerous is how silently it progresses. One day it is just numb toes in the morning, the next it's burning legs at night that ruin your sleep. And before you know it, walking becomes harder every week, all because the body can no longer restore blood circulation naturally. And once this downward spiral starts, it rarely fixes itself, which is why what you're about to hear next is so critical. You wake up with legs that feel numb and disconnected, and it takes several minutes before you trust them to stand. Your feet stay cold even when the room feels warm, and you wonder why your body is changing so fast lately. This is what poor circulation after 60 often feels like at first. Not sharp pain, but a dull loss of sensation in your legs, leaving you uneasy before your day even begins. Later in the day, you notice your socks never seem to warm your toes, no matter how many layers you wear around the house. And friends tell you it's just part of getting older. Yet deep down, you know something is not right, because cold feet in the elderly should not feel this constant. It should not follow you from morning until night, and that quiet discomfort slowly becomes your new normal. When you walk, your steps are shorter and more careful. You feel like your legs are not responding as quickly as before, almost as if the signal from your brain is delayed. This is the leg numbness seniors describe but rarely explain, and it makes even simple errands feel like a chore, robbing you of confidence one small step at a time, setting the stage for a deeper problem most people never identify. You try stretching, new shoes, or moving more during the day, hoping one of these simple fixes will finally solve it. But the numbness and cold always seem to come back, because none of these ideas deal with what's happening inside. They only mask the feeling for a short while. And the frustration builds when nothing truly changes, which is why you're about to hear about the mistake almost everyone makes. Family members tell you to ignore it and keep going. Friends suggest another cream or home remedy, and you start collecting half solutions that never last, each one promising relief but delivering disappointment, making you believe this is just how life is now. But that belief is the real trap holding you back, and it leads directly into the hidden error behind all of this. That error is not about effort or willpower at all. It's about treating your body like separate pieces instead of understanding how one broken signal affects everything, from how your feet feel to how you move through the day. And once you see how this mistake happens, you'll finally understand why nothing has worked so far. Which brings us to the real problem almost nobody is talking about. For years, I believed everything I felt in my legs was just aging, that the tingling and numbness were a normal part of getting older, and that cold feet were something every senior had to accept. So I pushed through the discomfort and tried to ignore the signs, telling myself it was nothing serious to worry about, even when the burning in my legs woke me up at night and I couldn't fall back asleep for hours. I blamed my shoes, my mattress, and even the weather, thinking maybe I was just too sensitive to temperature now. Yet the strange sensations kept spreading from my toes upward, turning simple walks into something I quietly dreaded. But I still told myself it was just one of those age things, the kind no doctor really has time to explain, and that false belief kept me stuck for far too long. Everything changed when I came across a different explanation, one that didn't talk about pain or aging at all, but about how certain internal signals fade after 60, and how that silence can feel exactly like tingling feet or like blocked arteries in the legs even when tests look normal.
And the idea that a single hidden deficiency could cause all of this was the moment I realized I had been missing something important. I started paying closer attention to my body after that, noticing patterns I had ignored for years, how the burning in my legs was worse at night and how the numbness was always stronger in the morning. Signs that pointed to something deeper than sore muscles, yet nobody had ever connected these dots for me before, which made me wonder what else I had never been told. The more I looked into it, the more the pieces began to line up, not just in my own experience, but in stories from others too. People who described the same cold feet and heavy legs, the same slow decline that seemed impossible to stop, all sharing one silent thread they had never noticed. And it was that shared pattern that finally caught my attention because it hinted at a problem hiding in plain sight. Once you see that pattern, you can't unsee it. It changes how you interpret every strange feeling in your legs, and it makes you question the idea that nothing can be done. But understanding the pattern is only the beginning, because to fix it, you must first understand the mistake behind it, the one that keeps this silent deficiency active year after year, and that's what we need to talk about next. The surprising part is that this has nothing to do with surgery, and it's not about taking strong drugs for the rest of your life, because those approaches only react to symptoms on the surface, while the real issue is happening much deeper inside your system, in the way your body communicates with your legs every single day. And that breakdown begins quietly long before you feel real pain, which is why most people never catch it in time. What I learned is that after 60, your body changes the way it absorbs key nutrients, not because you're doing something wrong, but because the internal transport system becomes less responsive. So even when you think you're doing everything right, your legs may not be getting the signals they need anymore. And this is why so many seniors feel stuck in a slow decline, despite trying every new trick they hear about. This silent shift explains why numbness seems to appear out of nowhere, why feet feel cold even in warm rooms, and why that burning sensation loves to show up at night, as if your body is reminding you that something is missing. Yet the message is so subtle that it's easy to ignore until walking becomes harder and balance feels less reliable, leaving you confused about how it all got so bad so fast. The hopeful news is that this is not a permanent shutdown. It's more like a system that has forgotten how to respond, and systems can be retrained when you use the right approach, not by forcing them, but by guiding them back into rhythm. And that's the key idea most people never hear, because nobody explains how this process actually works or why one single change can start a chain reaction. Once you understand that the problem is not damage but disconnection, everything starts to make more sense. Your body is not broken, it's just out of sync. And when that sync is restored, the signals begin to flow again. Not overnight miracles, but steady, noticeable shifts, the kind that make mornings feel easier over time and nights less uncomfortable than they used to be.
But before you can take advantage of that, you need to understand what is really happening inside your system, the internal mechanism that controls how those signals travel, and why it slowly shuts down after 60. Because until you see that mechanism clearly, every solution will feel like a guessing game. And that mechanism is exactly what we are about to uncover. Imagine your blood vessels like long garden hoses, meant to stay flexible so blood can flow without resistance. But over time, those hoses start to harden on the inside. Their walls become stiff and their openings grow narrower. And that is how blocked arteries in the legs quietly begin, not with pain at first, but with subtle changes in sensation, the kind most people ignore until it interferes with daily life. When those internal pathways lose their flexibility, blood does not reach the smallest vessels in your feet, and nerves stop getting the nourishment they depend on, which explains many of the tingling feet causes people talk about. Not mysterious nerve problems, but simple lack of proper flow, a signal that is trying to get through a narrowed channel, leaving behind that strange buzzing or pins and needles feeling. At night, this becomes even more noticeable because your body naturally shifts into repair mode while you rest,
trying to send more resources down to your legs. But the rigid vessels resist that increased demand. And this is why so many people complain about burning legs at night, a deep, uncomfortable warmth that seems to come from nowhere, disrupting sleep and leaving you tired the next morning. What makes this mechanism so frustrating is how logical it really is, yet no one ever explains it in a way you can understand, so the symptoms feel random instead of connected. Cold feet in the morning, tingling in the afternoon, burning at night, all parts of the same system slowly losing its responsiveness, as if your internal network is trying to speak but cannot be heard, which is why isolated fixes never truly solve the issue. Once you see this hose and flow picture in your mind, you realize the problem is not in your feet at all, it's in the pathways leading to them. And unless those pathways are prepared to open again, nothing you apply on the surface will make a real difference, no matter how promising it may sound at first, because the foundation of the system remains unchanged. This is where most advice completely misses the mark, focusing on one symptom instead of the entire pathway, never addressing why the hoses became rigid in the first place or how to gently encourage them to respond again. And without understanding that deeper process, people stay trapped in the same cycle year after year, which is why the next step in this system is so important to understand. What I eventually discovered is that this stiffness is not random. It's strongly connected to a vitamin deficiency blood flow depends on, a nutrient your body once absorbed easily when you were younger, but now struggles to take in after 60. Not because you stopped caring about your health, but because the internal delivery system slowly lost efficiency, leaving your legs without the signals they used to receive. This missing element plays a quiet but critical role. It supports the natural widening of those tiny blood pathways, helping them stay responsive instead of rigid. Yet when levels drop, the vessels lose that gentle flexibility, and blood has a harder time reaching the lower body, making numbness, cold, and burning feel unavoidable, even though the root cause is surprisingly simple. The reason so many seniors feel stuck is not lack of effort, it's that restoring this nutrient is not as easy as it sounds, because the body doesn't absorb it the same way anymore. So you can be doing the right things on the surface and still be missing the deeper support your system needs, which explains why progress often feels slow or non-existent, no matter how disciplined you try to be. When this deficiency stays unaddressed, the internal hoses we talked about remain tight and unresponsive, making it harder and harder to restore blood circulation naturally, not due to permanent damage, but due to lack of proper activation, as if the system has forgotten how to relax and open again. And that forgotten response is exactly what needs attention first before any other approach can truly work. The encouraging part is that the body has not lost this ability. It has simply gone quiet over time, and with the right signals, it can begin to remember, slowly reawakening that natural expansion process, which many people start noticing in subtle daily changes, not dramatic overnight shifts, but steady improvements that hint something inside is finally responding again. But to make that happen, it's not enough to focus on one step, because this vitamin is only one part of a larger internal process, a system that needs to be prepared, activated, and then supported. Otherwise, the old patterns quickly return. And that's why everything we've discussed so far leads into a structured method, one that works with the body in stages instead of fighting it. Which brings us to the next phase of this circulation reset system. This is the point where everything finally came together for me, not through a single pill or quick fix, but through what I now call a complete circulation reset protocol, designed specifically for people over 60 who feel that heavy, cold sensation in their legs and feet and are tired of chasing solutions that only work for a week without ever touching the real internal cause. Instead of naming a product, I learned to think in phases, each phase serving a clear purpose inside the body. The first, preparing the internal pathways to respond again, the second, reactivating the natural widening signals, and the third, helping the system hold on to those changes, so progress is not lost as soon as life gets busy, which is where most people fail without even realizing it. What surprised me is how different this felt from past attempts, because I was no longer fighting my body. I was guiding it step by step through a process it once knew, like reminding a forgotten skill instead of forcing a new one. And that shift in mindset alone changed how I approached my health, making each small sign of improvement feel logical rather than random or accidental. People often assume they need something extreme, but the protocol is built around simple daily actions, applied in the right order instead of all at once, so the body is never overwhelmed or shocked. It just begins to respond more naturally over time, the way it did years ago when circulation felt effortless, and that gradual return is what makes it sustainable. As more individuals follow this phased approach, patterns start to appear that are hard to ignore. Less morning stiffness, fewer cold episodes in the feet, and more confidence when standing or walking. Not because of luck, but because the system is finally aligned, each phase reinforcing the next like gears in motion, creating momentum that didn't exist before. Yet the most important part is understanding why these phases matter, because skipping even one can stall the entire process, and that's exactly what most people unknowingly do. They jump straight to activation without preparation, or they never support the system long enough to hold progress. And unless you see how these mistakes happen, you'll repeat them without even realizing it in the next phase. People who begin following this full protocol often notice small shifts first, not dramatic changes, but subtle differences that catch their attention, like waking up without that familiar buzzing in their toes, or realizing their feet no longer feel like ice blocks in the morning. And those early signs are what keep them engaged in the process, because they feel something inside is finally responding again, even if they can't yet put it in perfect words.
Many describe how the strange tingling that once followed them all day starts to appear less frequently as the weeks go by, not disappearing all at once, but slowly losing intensity, as if the internal pathways are learning how to respond again. And this is why people often say their legs feel more awake, not healed or cured, but more connected than before, a difference they had almost forgotten was possible. Nighttime is where these changes stand out the most, because that is when burning and discomfort used to peak, keeping them tossing and turning for hours. Yet with the protocol, many report calmer evenings, fewer interruptions, and a more settled feeling in the legs, allowing them to rest instead of counting the minutes until morning, which alone can change how they experience their entire day. During the day, warmth becomes easier to maintain, not from thicker socks or heated floors, but from a deeper internal shift they can actually feel, a gentle sense that blood is reaching places it had not before. And while everyone experiences this at their own pace, the pattern itself appears again and again in shared stories, suggesting the system is working in a consistent way. What stands out is not just the physical sensations, but the emotional response that comes with them. People say they feel more confident standing up or taking a walk, less worried about losing balance or moving too slowly, as if their legs are slowly becoming reliable again. And that change in mindset is often just as meaningful, because it affects how they approach every part of their day. These shared experiences point to something deeper than coincidence. They show what happens when a system is followed completely, rather than tested for a week and then abandoned. But understanding why consistency matters is the real key here, since missing even one phase can stall the entire process, and that is exactly what we need to look at next, because the protocol only works when applied as a whole. If you want to experience this same circulation reset protocol for yourself, the complete 3-phase system is available right now.
not as a quick trick, but as a guided method you can follow at home, designed specifically for people over 60 who are tired of chasing fragmented solutions and are finally ready to support their body in a structured way without turning their routine upside down. Everything is organized so you do not have to guess what comes next, each phase building on the one before it, helping your internal pathways prepare, respond, and then sustain, so you're not left wondering if you're doing it correctly. And that clarity alone is often what people have been missing after years of jumping from one idea to another, never knowing which piece actually mattered. To access this full protocol, the details are shared for you below, not hidden behind complicated steps or confusing instructions, so you can review the approach calmly in your own time, without pressure or overwhelming information. Just a clear path you can choose to explore, if this way of thinking about circulation makes sense to you. And that first step is already waiting in the pinned comment. The reason the information is placed there is simple. It keeps everything easy to find when you're ready, instead of forcing you to search through long descriptions or try to remember what was said earlier in the video. So when curiosity strikes, you know exactly where to look, and you can come back to it whenever it feels right, because this decision should never feel rushed. Of course, this protocol is not for everyone. It's meant for people who want a complete system, not another surface-level idea they'll forget in a week. And that's why it's shared as a full experience, so you can understand how the phases work together, instead of trying to isolate one part and hoping for the best, which rarely leads to lasting change. Before you decide anything, though, there's one final piece of the system you should understand, the part that explains why the three phases must work together and what happens when even one of them is skipped. Because without that clarity, most people repeat old patterns, thinking they followed the protocol when they really didn't, and that is exactly what we need to address in the closing section. Before you leave, take a moment to share where you're watching from, because every comment helps this channel reach others over 60, people who may be dealing with the same cold feet and leg numbness and still think nothing can be done about it. So your simple message becomes part of a larger conversation, one that shows no one has to go through this alone. And that awareness is the first step towards real change. While you're here, make sure to like this video, not as a favor, but as a signal to the platform, so more seniors who search for circulation help can find it, instead of only seeing surface-level advice that never explains the system. Because the more this message spreads, the more people understand that poor circulation after 60 is not just fate, it's a process that can be approached with the right method. If you want to keep learning about how the body changes with age and how internal systems can be supported gently and safely, then follow the channel so you don't miss future videos, each one designed to break down complex health topics into language that actually makes sense in daily life, without hype, fear, or impossible promises, just clear explanations you can build on over time. When you feel ready to explore the circulation reset protocol itself, the link to the supplements that support this system is waiting for you in the first pinned comment below this video, so you can review the information quietly on your own without pressure or confusing navigation, simply reading through the details when it feels right and deciding if this structured approach fits your routine. That pinned comment exists to make things simple, so you don't have to scroll or hunt for the next step, because the hardest part is often knowing where to begin, especially after years of trying one idea after another. But now you know this is not about one quick fix, it's about following a system in the right order, so your body has a chance to respond naturally again. So leave your comment, like the video, and follow the channel today. Then take a look at the first pinned comment when you're ready, because that's where the next part of this journey starts, not with pressure, but with understanding and structure. And once you take that first step, you'll see that everything you felt in your legs had a reason behind it, which is exactly what the next phase of this process will help you uncover.